I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room.
What is going on, Locker Room faithful? Before we get started, this is your code word for the day. It might be one, it might be more, who knows? All you have to do is listen. But the code word is Jacob. To start off today, the code word is Jacob. I'm not telling you the previous three. You'll have to listen to my last podcast just so you can find out. But we have a great show today. We're going to start off with some bangers for you. But let's get started by going ahead and following the Locker Room on Twitter, TLR with Jacob. On Facebook, The Locker Room Host Jacob. On Instagram, The Locker Room Podcast 615. And on TikTok, The Locker Room 22. Be sure to find our friends at FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all your fitness and health needs. They now have clothing, all made here in the beautiful US of A. So go support a local US company. Make sure you hit that promo code TLR Host. That is TLR Host, all capitals, for 15% off your order. If you need a late Christmas gift, they will get that delivered to you. Go check them out. Let's have a great show. Well, picking up right where we left off last week, I told you I was going to not do the NFL a disservice by just skimming through the last few teams, so we saved a few teams for the beginning of this week. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go listen to my last episode. We had a really fun time. Basically, here's how the segment goes. An NFL team is generated on my phone. It's never the same team twice. And I just give you my first opinion or thought right off the top of my head. It literally generates right in front of me. And I just tell you what I think about that team. First thing that comes to my mind. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. And last week, the New Orleans Saints were the very next role. So we're going to start off with the New Orleans Saints. What to say about the New Orleans Saints? They are probably, in my opinion, the best coached team in all of the NFL. Here's a couple reasons why I say that. I have never seen a team lose their star quarterback and go on winning streaks like the Saints have. When's the last time you saw Tom Brady go down and Jimmy Garoppolo come in and win 5-6 games? We saw that last year with Teddy Bridgewater. When's the last time you saw Peyton Manning go down? And I honestly don't even know if they had a backup quarterback for Peyton Manning back in the day. But and you saw his replacement come in and win 5 or 6 games. Crucial games, I might add. Games that led you to the playoffs. It's never happened. What they're doing this year, of course, Drew Brees is out again, which is no shock to a lot of people. Here's the deal. Drew Brees is a top 5 quarterback of all time, but he might be the most injury-prone person I've ever seen. He's a tough guy, don't get me wrong, playing with 11 fractures in his ribs. I get that. But he's always hurt. He's always sitting out games every single year. And the job that this coaching staff is able to do to not only get their offense on the same page, not only get their defense playing at an elite level like we have seen the last several games. Now I realize they took an L on Sunday. We'll discuss that in just a second. But getting this team to gel with whoever is behind the quarterback position. Whether it's Taysom Hill, who's rattled off 3 or 4 wins. He had a loss on Sunday. I think that would have been his 4th game, so rattled off 3 wins. Teddy Bridgewater rattled off 5 wins. Jameis Winston finished out a game and won a game. Like, they could just plug anybody at that quarterback position, and the coaching staff does a great job of leading them through a very smart game plan that keeps the quarterback safe. It makes the quarterback be a ball distributor, not a game winner. That's what I love. That's what I loved about this Taysom Hill move. Now, I'm a big Jameis Winston guy, and I think Jameis Winston deserves a starting job at the right place. Chicago's a very good option. Looks like Philadelphia's found their quarterback. Maybe he trickles on down to Dallas if they get rid of their boy there. Because I'm sorry, but there ain't no way Dak Prescott's getting, whatever ridiculous contract he wants, $45 million a year or something crazy. So I like Jameis Winston. But what Taysom Hill has done so well is they have just made him a ball distributor, a runner of the football, which is his strong suit when he needs to be, and just slowed the game down. And that all comes down to coaching. Their game plan every week is brilliant. They are one of the best coach teams in all football. I know I went on a little Saints praise here, but no, I'm not a Saints fan, for those of you who are probably wondering or listening for the first time. By the way, thank you to all the first-time listeners. We've got a lot of you recently, and it's super cool to see numbers just skyrocket out of nowhere. I hope you come back. I hope I'm a good house guest. I hope you have some fun here. And hey, if you're bored at work like I am a lot of the times, just turn on a podcast, listen to my rambling ass, and hopefully put a smile on your face at the end of the show. Like I said, if you always disagree with me, my DMs are always open. I love having conversations. I'm not going to cuss you out or fight you, but if it's a pretty funny conversation, I might post it to the Instagram story. So you never know. Shoot your shot. It'll be a lot of fun. But that is my first thought when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. Next up on the list, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, with the Arizona Cardinals, this is an interesting one for me, and the very first thing that wants to pop into my mind is Kyler Murray, right? He's played great. He has this team on the verge of making a wild card spot. They have beaten Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. They have battled for first all year long. I love what I've seen from this team. They're young, they're scrappy, they're hungry. Hashtag Hamilton. They're missing a lot of key players as well due to injury. Their running backs have been decimated with injury all year, but they still have found ways to be effective and win the football game. But all that aside, the first thing that comes to my mind, DeAndre Hopkins' revenge season. The Texans shipped him out, basically saying that he's washed up, he's done. They wanted to pull a Belichick and ship him off, while he's in his prime, so that way they weren't stuck with a lot of money in a wide receiver that wasn't producing. But here's the problem that I have with that, is Bill Belichick has never shipped off a wide receiver, not necessarily in their prime, but shipped off a wide receiver with such high production like this. This is what blows my mind that the Texans did, is DeAndre Hopkins, their leading catcher. They're leading yards after catch. They're leading touchdown. And they still go, nah, he's almost done. You would rather trust, I don't know, one of your boys is popped for PEDs and is suspended for 6 games and is done for the rest of the year. So you got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, arguably, I would even argue this year, the best wide receiver in the NFL, this year at least. But especially with so much injuries to Julio, to Michael Thomas. Devontae Adams has been injured, even though he's been incredible when he's been playing. Arguably the best wide receiver in the entire NFL this year, and you shipped him out so you could get some bums to play on the field. That's what doesn't compute with me for the Houston Texans. So he came in here with an edge. He balled out. He showed out, and that is why DeAndre Hopkins is in his revenge season. First thing that comes to my mind. Next up, the Miami Dolphins. Listen, the first thing that comes to my mind with the Miami Dolphins, they're not that bad. They blow my mind on every single Sunday. For a second against Kansas City this week, I thought Miami was going to get it done. I had my fingers crossed. Listen, I'm not a huge Tua Tagovailoa guy. It has nothing to do with the fact that he went to the worst college in all of the history of the world in Alabama. And that's not because I hate the school Alabama. I just really dislike the Alabama Crimson Tide. More so their fans. More so a specific fan that kind of tainted me to Bama. So you've seen him on the Saturday morning show. Seth Orton, you know who you are. Bama sucks, and you can't be an SEC fan. That makes absolutely no sense. But that is another argument for another day, and I swear you're going to hear this argument because you can't be a conference fan because that makes no damn sense. But that's the very first thing that comes to my mind is not that bad. And here, I love Tua Tagovailoa's progression. I've got to remember that him, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, before he was injured, these guys are rookies. But they play with such poise, such maturity, that it looks like they've been playing for years. I feel like I've been watching them for years. I mean, Justin Herbert I have over at Oregon, but Tua Tagovailoa showed me something on Sunday. I'm sitting there and, I criticize him. I'm like, he's got to be better. He's got to be better. And trust me, he does have to be better. So does Herbert. So does Burrow. They're young quarterbacks. They're only rookies. But his progression every week when he plays for the full game is getting better and better and better. You can see him start to slowly run the offense a little bit more. He's starting to learn to pull the ball when necessary. He's starting to learn when to not take hits, which is very imperative to somebody who has his injury history. He's starting to just be a facilitator when he needs to be, or be an aggressive passer of the football when he needs to be. Those are big steps that Justin Herbert has to take. He's got to stop being overly aggressive and learn to just facilitate when he needs to. Tua Tagovailoa's got to learn to be aggressive and stop just being a facilitator. There's a lot of guys in this league, one of them being on your bench and Ryan Fitzpatrick, that can facilitate a football. So once these young guys start growing up, I'm very pleased with the draft, with the quarterbacks drafted in this last draft, and I think they're going to be our next household names. I mean, you got to think about it. Big Ben's about to be done. Tom Brady's about to be done. So when you have guys like that going away, you have Justin Herbert, you have Tua Tagovailoa now. You've got Joe Burrow, who I absolutely love, and he's had a phenomenal year. Very sad that he got injured. But anyways, back to Miami, because this isn't about rookie quarterbacks. We've already talked about that. But I'm impressed with Miami because they really are not that bad, and I expected them to not be that great. But their defense has surprised me. The coaching is awesome. Brian Flores really gets these guys bought into whatever system he's trying to produce. And we've seen Miami have some very impressive wins. And listen, the Dolphins are on the verge of a wild card spot if they keep messing around like this. Now, I know they had a bad loss on Sunday that they could have taken that moment, and they almost had it. One too many mistakes, one too many safe plays for Tua Tagovailoa. Games like that against, Super Bowl champions, you've got to be overly aggressive. We talked about that in my Titans take yesterday, how aggressive play against better teams is much, much better off excuse me, than trying to be safe and conservative. But not that bad. Very surprised by Miami. All right, I'm going to pick up the pace here a little bit because there is a lot I want to get to today. Chicago Bears is the next team that just rolled up on the dice. Plain and simple, get a damn quarterback. Now, coming from Chicago, being a Bears supporter, a Bears fan, I am so tired of watching good Bears teams be squandered away by bad quarterback play. Listen, I think Mitch Trubisky is doing a fine job. The problem is the Bears won't commit to Trubisky, so Trubisky plays timid. Trubisky was 3-0 when he got benched. Now, granted, he wasn't having a great couple of first 3 games, but he just had a phenomenal game on Sunday. Give Mitchell Trubisky the reins and or ship him out of there. Get Foles the hell out of there. I'm sorry. Foles is only good in Philadelphia. Eagles fans, anybody in the league, argue that point with me. I dare you. He is garbage anywhere else outside of Philadelphia. Mark my words, Nick Foles will never have a Super Bowl-like game the rest of his career because it's not in Philly. He's not a Philadelphia Eagle, which, hell, he might as well go back there because I think Carson Wentz is being shipped out. So if I'm Chicago this offseason, you're going to get Tariq Cohen back, which is a huge piece. Your defense is top 5, I believe top 3 in the entire NFL. Go get Carson Wentz, who's about to be traded from the Eagles, because Jalen Hurts is not giving up that starting job, as well as he shouldn't. Go get Carson Wentz. Go get Sam Darnold, because the Jets are going to be stuck with a quarterback. Hell, see if you can work out a deal to take Trevor Lawrence off their hands. If they're so invested in Sam Darnold like they keep saying, I am tired of watching good Bears teams, even on the verge of great Bears teams, squandered by bad quarterback play. Get yourself a quarterback. Next up, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady? Question mark? Here's my problem with Tampa Bay. We're seeing Bruce Arians and how lackluster his offense is, and why a player like Jameis Winston did not thrive in that situation. I talked about this on several podcasts. Jameis Winston is somebody who, he was stealing lobsters at like 21 years old, right, from a Kroger. Like, he's that kind of a kid, and then you gave him the reins to an offense and said, don't be a screw-up. Of course the kid's going to be a screw-up. And the problem is you're so strict with what you have to run, how you have to run it, the type of offense you have to run, that you squandered away Jameis Winston's ability to evolve as a quarterback. You made him throw 45 and 50 times a game when that is not what he should be doing. This is my problem with Tom Brady right now. Tom Brady is being asked to throw the football every single time because that's what Bruce Arians does, and the problem is Tom Brady looks tired. I'm not saying he's washed up or old. All I'm saying is he looks tired. You can see him at the end of football games look exhausted because he's having to throw the ball 40 and 50 times a game. Rely on your running game. You brought Leonard Fournette in for a reason. Now, I know he's been injured and off and on, and that's who Leonard Fournette is. But when Leonard Fournette is healthy with Ronald Jones, you have 2 stud tight ends that can block for you. Why are you not a power running team who plays off of play action, the same thing that Tom Brady was so good at at the Patriots in New England? So I'm not saying that this is Tom Brady's fault that he looks this way, but I'm saying Tom Brady looks lackluster based on the system that he's being put in. So if Tom Brady wants to maintain this GOAT status, which I don't think it can be taken away, just based on the body of work, he'll be a stat leader in so many categories along with rings, and that's how I pick a GOAT, for those of you who want to know my Jordan-LeBron debate. If someone has almost every stat category filled above somebody else and also has just a few less rings, that's who I believe the best player is. So now there's that. It's a deeper conversation. I did a whole Michael Jordan versus LeBron James episode way in the beginning of the podcast, like episode 2 or 3. So if you're interested in a deep dive on that, we are going to get into that in a couple months. I've got a very close friend who used to work with the Chicago Bulls that's going to come back on. Or who's going to come on, and talk about that. But anyways, getting off track. Sorry, I just get so excited in the sports podcast world that there's so much awesomeness I want to talk about. But this is where Tom Brady has got to step up. Talk to Bruce Arians and say, listen, this is what we're going to have to run in order to make it successful. So I say Tom Brady ? Because I'm wondering what Tom Brady is going to do to make sure that this team can start being consistent, because we are getting way too close to playoff time. Next up, we've got the New York Jets. This is easy. Adam Gase sucks. Adam Gase sucks. Adam Gase sucks. Adam Gase is the worst head coach to ever be a head coach of anything ever to exist. Whether it's Pop Warner, to middle school, to JV, to frickin' varsity. He is a terrible coach. I wouldn't trust him with a Division III non-scholarship athlete at some Hodunk college in the middle of Iowa. Then I would trust him at an actual organization like the New York Jets. The Jets are an embarrassment. Sam Darnold is an embarrassment. And I believe it all circles back around to the worst head coach in all of football, and Adam Gase. He should be fired, should be gone. That's my first thoughts when it comes to the New York Jets. Next up, we've got the Denver Broncos. The first thing that comes to my mind is Drew Lock the answer. We've seen so much inconsistency with this offense. First off, this offense is stacked. It's stupidly stacked. The problem is Philip Lindsay's not getting enough touches. Melvin Gordon's getting overly touches on the football because it's Melvin Gordon and we all like name brand around here. But at the same time, Diet Cola is just as good as Diet Coke, right? Philip Lindsay can get the job done. He's rushed for over 100 yards in 6 of his 9 games that he's been active in, or 6 of his 7 games he's been active in. So Philip Lindsay can get the job done. They're not utilizing their backfield. So that goes along with coaching. But is Drew Lock the guy you want throwing the football on this football team for the future? I believe so. I think Drew Lock can do it. I think Drew Lock has shown not only some improvement from last year, but has shown that he can be the guy. But is Drew Lock the guy? If that's the case, I know the organization has started him this year, but there's rumblings that maybe the organization is looking to trade him. Maybe the organization is looking to draft a backup QB. We need to figure that situation out. If Drew Lock is your future, put your faith in Drew Lock. We can all agree that this team has wildly underachieved this year with one of the best wide receiving cores and tight end tandems in all of the NFL. With Drew Lock, when healthy, has been underwhelming a little bit this year. But Denver has to answer that question, and that's my question as well. Is Drew Lock the guy? I like him. I think he can do the job, but is he the guy? Next up, we've got the Los Angeles Rams. Back to Super Bowl form. Listen, this team is playing just like they did when they made it to the Super Bowl a few years ago. They have the opportunity to get back there. We're seeing not only Aaron Donald, the best defensive player in all football, arguably the best player in all football, if you actually look at the football side of it, play at just a crazy elite level. when you have a quarterback that is starting to deliver the football efficiently, which is all they have needed him to do, which is all they have ever asked for him to do, when you have a very smart head coach that knows how to put his quarterback in a very safe and smart situation, when he can average almost 315 yards a game and the running ground can average almost 95 to 100 yards a game, that's when you know you are working in sync. That is what I love, love, love about this team. Back to Super Bowl form. All right, well, we've only got a few more here. The Tennessee Titans. Well, for those of you who don't listen to my Titans take, you know it's been a very up and down emotional ride with the Tennessee Titans this year. But for the Tennessee Titans, the first thing that comes to my mind is maybe we have a chance. Now, I am not, those of you who know me, I am not somebody who just because I'm a fan of that team thinks that they walk on water, that they're not, they're the greatest team that's ever been, ever has been, no one can beat them, blah, 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 blah. Unlike a lot of sports fans where we want to look at our teams we don't want to look at our teams objectively when we want to look at them superficially where they're the greatest thing that's walked the earth. And trust me, I'm a diehard Bears and Titans fan, which I know sounds weird. And if you talk about the Oregon Ducks, I'm going to tell you that they're the greatest thing in the world. But I've done a decent job, I would say, of being very objective when it comes to the Titans. And the Titans do have an opportunity, especially with Baltimore Ravens sucking it up so bad, with the Pittsburgh Steelers who don't have that good of a run game, and the Titans played terrible against them and still had an opportunity to win that football game. With the Kansas City Chiefs who, even though their offense is impeccable, I don't like their defense that much at all. I'm going to say that the Titans have a chance to get to the Super Bowl. Just my thought, first thing that comes to my head. I know sometimes I sound like a moron to a lot of you new listeners, but I promise, I am not this crazy all the time. Sometimes I just like to make big, bold statements, and most of the time they come wrong. So anyways, moving on, let's go to who else? Name generator. Sorry, this thing's going super slow all of a sudden. Oh, Detroit Lions is the next one up. Goodbye, Matt Patricia? ? This team is the most underachieving team in that entire division and maybe in all of the NFC because this team has so much potential with a quarterback, with an array of running backs now, and DeAndre Swift and Adrian Peterson, who has played very well, by the way, with a wide receiving core that is pretty darn good, even though they have some injury to it. I mean, you have two top 30 guys on that team, I would say. And you have Matthew Stafford, who's a top 15 quarterback in this league, who can make incredible throws, underachieving. Matt Patricia is a bad football coach. Matt Patricia is the reason for this team's downfall, but that is going to be the big question going into this offseason. That is going to be the big question. Was it Matt Patricia, or was it just this football team? Let's find out next year. Next, we've got the Indianapolis Colts, the rival to the Tennessee Titans. Now, listen, I thought the Colts were going to be good this year for the simple fact that they had a very good defense. They've got good offensive weapons, but the big question was, can Phillip Rivers be that guy? And I think the first thing that comes to my mind is Phillip Rivers has life left. And we have seen that in every single football game. Whether it's been great, good, or bad, Phillip Rivers is still a top 20 quarterback. He can still make throws. He's got this Colts team not only making the playoffs, but this Colts team really putting a smacking down on a Las Vegas Raiders team that really isn't a bad football team. So I like what I've seen. Phillip Rivers has shown me a lot. He's still got some juice left in the tank after all, no pun intended, considering he has 25 kids. But Phillip Rivers has some life left. So congratulations, Phillip. You have at least another year, in my opinion, in Indianapolis before you inevitably retire. Moving on, the generator has given us the Los Angeles Chargers. The bright spot, the only thing that really comes to my mind, Justin Herbert can play. This was a big question mark for a lot of people. Justin Herbert was not favored in a lot of NFL boards. Justin Herbert was probably the most heavily critiqued quarterback skill-wise coming out of this draft class. They liked the intangibles like the size, the arm strength, the speed, but they did not like the actual quarterback play a lot of the times, and that was his biggest downfall. But Justin Herbert not only has shown that he can play, he very well might win Rookie QB of the Year. I would say that he's definitely got my vote. I would say that he's got probably 90% of America's votes by the way he's played. Justin Herbert is the real deal. He's going to be an awesome quarterback for years to come. Very happy to see a former Duck, go Ducks, be this successful in the NFL. Because listen, guys, for the last several years, there has not been a lot of us, but thanks to Mario Cristobal, who better, for the love of the Lord on high, not leave us for Auburn. We're starting to get some good, successful Ducks in the NFL, and Justin Herbert is just the beginning. Moving on, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. Oh, gosh. I would say this one's tough, in all honesty, because I want to just go to bad football team, bad football team, bad football team. But I would probably say my underwhelming team of the year. Now, I know a lot of people would think that just simply based on record, it would be somebody like the Jets, or it would be the Houston Texans, who inevitably I just rang up next on my list. But the Atlanta Falcons, I had hopes for this offense. I had hopes that Matt Ryan, and I told you before the NFL season started how Matt Ryan bounces back after lackluster years. This offense has some very, very good weapons. They added Todd Gurley to the backfield. Even though the defense wasn't that great, this offense should have been able to score with the best of them. And they are the most underwhelming team I have ever seen. And it kind of hurts my feelings because I was a big, big fan of this team coming into the year. I like Matt Ryan. I want them to be successful. Listen, they fired their head coach. They're probably going to clean shop at the end of this year, and I do not know if Matt Ryan is quarterback at the end of this year or if the Atlanta Falcons try and trade him and get some pieces and try and sneak up and get Trevor Lawrence. Next up, like I already said, we've got the Houston Texans. I think the first thing that comes to my mind with the Houston Texans is probably dumbest offseason move ever. Taking DeAndre Hopkins, their top wide receiver, their top scorer, their top yards after catch, their top everything basically on the offensive side of the football besides Deshaun Watson, shipping him out of there for the simple fact that you think that he's basically past his prime, and then you made up a bunch of bullcrap stories about how you guys got into some major fight with him, which he says is baloney. A lot of people are saying is baloney. You have the worst offseason move, probably to date in the last 15 years. This would be just like the Saints just shipping Michael Thomas off and just being like, we're good. We really don't want that much for you anyways. Hey, give us a running back that has been hurt 3 out of the last 5 seasons. That would be fantastic. Worst offseason move, dumbest coaching move. There's a reason that he's he's no longer coaching there. Mr. Butthole Chin, as I like to call him. So good riddance, goodbye. Hopefully the Houston, being a Titans fan, I don't really care if Houston crashes and burns, but hopefully we see a Houston Texans team, especially with Deshaun Watson at the helm, that can at least be competitive next year. Moving on, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, the Bengals. This one's super simple. Joe Burrow is the biggest bright spot. Joe Burrow is the biggest blessing. Joe Burrow is going to take a god-awful team, and he's going to make them mediocre for years to come, just like Andy Dalton used to do. He might even get this team to a playoff, and God forbid if this team could get some more players in there, he might take this team to a Super Bowl because I think Joe Burrow is just that good. 2 more here. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars on the right path. I've told you this from the beginning of the NFL season until now. If you're going to rebuild your team, the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing it the right way, getting great pieces in place, shipping off their older, more expensive talent so they can make more room, make more cap space, get some more young rookies in there, slowly grow this team from the bottom up, and they are right on track to do such a thing. Next up, the Carolina Panthers, I would say found the right coach. I'm a big Ron Rivera fan, don't get me wrong, but I love what I am seeing from this football team. Now, they have had a lot of lackluster performances, and a lot of that is based on not necessarily play calling or coaching. A lot of it's just poor execution sometimes from this football team, but I like what I'm seeing. They found the right guy. I can't remember his name, but the ex-head coach from Baylor, I really like this guy, even though I can't remember his name. But yeah, Carolina Panthers hit a home run when it comes to their coaching staff. Boom! There is your NFL segment for the week. Now let's move on to the top 10 NBA player list was released. Who do you think is going to be on my list? I don't know. Let's find out. Okay, so ESPN came out with their top 100 list. More importantly, we're focusing on the top 10 because there's no way I'm sitting through a 100 player. Deontay Murray for the point guard for San Antonio is at 100. Do you guys care? No, I don't either. So we're going to focus on the top 10. Now, those of you who have listened to my show for a long time, you know every NBA season I come out with my top 10, and we usually compare it to ESPN's top 10. Now, the weird thing about this year, ESPN has almost an identical list to me. That usually never happens, especially ESPN. ESPN always throws Kawhi Leonard up at number one just because for some reason we praise Kawhi Leonard for constantly underachieving and sitting out 35 games a year because for some reason that's incredible. Usually they put Giannis at number two, which that is debatable depending on who you talk to. I believe you have to be able to hit a jump shot beyond 15 feet consistently in order to be a dynamic player. I love Giannis. I think Giannis is a top 5 player, maybe even top 2, 3. You might find out in a second. Don't get me wrong. But Giannis definitely has his shortcomings. When you're talking about the first and second best player in all of the NBA, you're talking about two players that are nigh to unstoppable, two players that can do it all from defense to offense, two players that impact the game in such a way that they are the best players in the entire NBA, right? So 1 and 2 I take very important. I take it to heart, all right, guys? I'm emotionally invested in 1 and 2 when it comes to the NBA. And when I looked at ESPN's list, I was a little bit shocked. I did not expect them to be as close to me as they were, and or as, what's the word I'd like to point out here? As objective as they probably could have ever been in a long time. I mean, how many times do you see LeBron James at the top of these lists? Especially ESPN. ESPN throws LeBron at 2 and 3 all the time. Last year they had LeBron at like 3. Hell, they had Kevin Durant in like top 5 and he was injured. Okay? So I took injuries out of the equation last year. So I didn't include Kevin Durant in my top 10 because he wasn't playing that year. So we're talking about this year, the NBA's 1 through 10. We're going to start at my 1 and ESPN's 1, and we are going to work our way back. At number 1, who else did ESPN put? Who else did I put than the GOAT himself, LeBron James? You can't put anybody above LeBron James. Anybody that is averaging 25.6 points a game, anybody that is averaging 10.1 assists, anybody that is averaging 8.6 rebounds a game. In year, 27 it feels like? At 39,000 years old? Like, it just seems like LeBron James is still the young 25-year-old guy in Miami. That's how crazy he is. And what drives me insane are the people that will continually bash LeBron for anything good that he does. Now, we can have the GOAT debate all day long, but you cannot continually debate with me, and I would love to have you on, because how can you not put LeBron James at number 1 as the best player in the NBA still? Until LeBron James is averaging 11 points a game, 2 rebounds, and 75 assists, then you can be like, oh, well, he's only a good passer now. And don't get me wrong, is LeBron the same that he was 4 years ago? No, but he's also 36 years old. LeBron's impact on the game has made LeBron James the number 1 player in the NBA for this upcoming season. What he did last year was impeccable, was incredible. He was doing career highs and league highs at 35 years old. Now that this team and this Lakers roster is even more loaded, prepare to see a LeBron James that is about to go AWOL and deserves an MVP like he deserved last year, because the most valuable player is the player that a team would sink without. And we saw the Bucks win a basketball game without Giannis on the court. When did you ever see the Lakers win without LeBron James in the playoffs? Doesn't happen, would never happen, can never happen. LeBron James at number 1. Good job, ESPN. Number 2, my number 2, Anthony Davis. ESPN's number 2, Anthony Davis. Now, this is not because I'm a Lakers guy. This is not because I'm a LeBron guy and I like AD. This is because Anthony Davis, in the playoffs, became the second best player in the entire NBA. Anthony Davis deserves this title. Anybody that can do what he did in the playoffs, anybody that can block shots the way he does, play defense the way he does, and turn around and score 30, and hit game winners in the playoffs, and win an NBA championship in his first year with LeBron, and be one of the best players on that team, the second best to be exact, and the first best in a lot of different basketball games, has got to be the second best player in the entire world. He can do everything. Shoot threes, he can dribble, he can rebound, he can play great defense, he can block shots, he can assist the basketball. Anthony Davis is the complete package. He is just now coming into his prime. Be aware of Anthony Davis. Now he reminds me a lot of KD, but KD's definitely a lot better with the ball and a better shooter, don't get me wrong. But he reminds me of a KD, someone who KD came into his own when he went to Golden State when it came to the defensive side of the basketball. But he reminds me a lot of KD in the sense that there's just some players you can't guard. He is one of those guys you cannot guard. At number 3, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Of course, we've got to put Giannis up here at number 3. Here's what I love about Giannis. Giannis is a walking double-double. Giannis is a walking, just a walking 3 block shots, 29 points, and 20 rebounds a game if he really wanted to be. He's a freak of nature. He is what leads the Bucks. My shortcomings with him are more so in the sense that he's got to be a much better shooter from the perimeter in order to be in that 1 to 2 category. What Anthony Davis has over him is he can shoot threes consistently and he can play defense and rebound. While Giannis can play defensive and rebound, Giannis cannot shoot threes consistently and can't shoot a jump shot with outside of 15 feet consistently whatsoever. That's why I put him back at 3. But there's no doubt in my mind that if Giannis gets a jump shot, we've already seen his free throw form change and be a lot better. Giannis is going to be the best player in the world. There's just some people you can't guard, and if Giannis gets a jump shot, he is another one of those people. So I agree with ESPN. We both have Giannis at 3 here, and here's where it's about to get very interesting. We don't really differ too much until we get to 5. So let's go ahead and go to number 4, Luka Doncic. I agree with ESPN. I had Luka Doncic as my 4th best player in the NBA. Why? He was averaging 30 points in the playoffs. And don't get me wrong, that's great and all, but this was also his first playoffs. Listen, where Luka falls short is, of course, on the defensive side of the basketball. He's a liability sometimes on the defensive side of the basketball, but each one of these players from 3 on, they all have their shortcomings, and that's what keeps them out of the 1-2 conversation for me. When you have your shortcomings, that are that major, like defense, like shooting for Giannis, the next couple people we'll talk about, that is when you start falling back into the rankings. But what Luka Doncic did in the playoffs was remarkable, and there's no way I could put him any lower than 4 because he straight up was owning the Clippers himself. He was owning Kawhi Leonard. He owned Paul George. He owned Patrick Beverley. He made every single person on that team look like fools. There was nothing they could do to guard him. He shot unbelievable. He hit buzzer beaters. He was a leader. Luka Doncic is the 4th best player in all of the NBA right now, and he is well on his way to probably being the best player in the NBA for years to come if he can continually grow the way we've seen him from year 1 to year 2 to now year 3. We're about to see a Luka Doncic that is not only MVP caliber, but a Luka Doncic that could very well be an MVP winner at the end of the season. Now, here's where it gets very dicey for me when it comes to ESPN. They are inevitable in just putting Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard in this position, even though we haven't seen Kevin Durant dribble a basketball in almost 2 years. And Kawhi Leonard sits out half the year, then gets bounced in the playoffs by the lowly Denver Nuggets and gets a whopping 7 points in the last game of the year. Not getting jack crap in the 4th quarter, but we don't want to talk about that because Kawhi's the best player. So for anybody arguing that, you can stop talking now. But 5 for me, Damian Lillard, and here's the simple fact that I like Damian Lillard. Not only can Dame play defense, but Damian Lillard has become Steph Curry since Steph Curry's been out, right? So the reason I don't put Kevin Durant and Steph Curry so high is I've yet to see them play a full 35, 45 minutes of a basketball game yet. I've yet to see them have to dribble, shoot, play defense for an entirety of a game. And when I see that, my opinion might change. And I don't have them out of my top 10. Don't worry. But until I see that, I can't in good faith put them up in my top 5. So for me, Damian Lillard is going to be at that spot because I love what Damian Lillard brings to the table. Great defense. He can score with the best of them. Damian Lillard is a very underrated basketball player. And if Damian Lillard was on any other team, if he was with the Lakers, if he was with the Clippers, if he was with Golden State, there would be many of you arguing that Damian Lillard is one of the best players in the NBA, up in like the 3-4 category. I'm not joking. I've watched a lot more Damian Lillard games than most of the average people in the world, and probably more than even Portland has. I love Damian Lillard. There's several people I know that are very close with me that would agree that Damian Lillard is the most underrated player in the NBA right now. Doesn't get a lot of love. He doesn't have a lot of help up there, and I love what Damian Lillard brings, so he is my number 5. At number 6, I'm going Kevin Durant. Now, like I said, we have not seen Kevin Durant play a full basketball game yet. When I saw him in the preseason, he didn't look too shabby. And when Kevin Durant is healthy and Kevin Durant can be Kevin Durant, he's up there in the 3-4 category. I still believe Giannis has the defensive edge. And if he was matched up against Giannis this late in his career and Giannis is this early in his career, I believe that Giannis wins that battle when it comes to the defensive side. But let's put defense aside here. KD's a better player than Giannis without a doubt. So he's up there battling with Giannis for that third, second spot with him and Anthony Davis for sure when he's completely healthy. Some say he's even the best player in the world. He might be. We've seen spurts of that coming about, but I would still keep LeBron up top. He's battling for that 2-3 spot if he's completely healthy. With not seeing Kevin Durant at all, with only seeing Kevin Durant in one preseason game, he looked shaky, but he still looked okay. I believe we're going to see a normal Kevin Durant. I believe he's going to have another big year in his career, as well as he has to because he left Golden State. He's talked all this trash. He's, hates the media, fights the media. So this has got to be Kevin Durant's year. And I'm rooting for Kevin Durant. I like Kevin Durant. I think he's arguably one of the best scorers, if not the best scorer, right behind Michael Jordan in that 1-2 category. James Harden's definitely up there for me as well. But he's right in that best scorer to ever do it. He's almost unguardable. And that's why I love Kevin Durant here at number 6. Moving on to number 7, I'm going to put Kawhi Leonard here. Now, I know I hate on Kawhi Leonard a lot, but my problem with Kawhi Leonard is always load management and leadership and what he brings to a team during the playoffs. Now, if everybody wants to go to the Toronto series and break that down, that's great. If you look at Kawhi Leonard during the Toronto series, he is not what closed the games for Toronto. He hit the luckiest game winner in all of game winners against the 76ers, a ball that bounced 6 times onto a rim before it inevitably went in. And everybody said, what a shot, greatest shot. Now, LeBron James hits more game winners than anybody in history, and everybody wants to say that he's overrated, he's trash, junk buckets, but whatever. Game winner's a game winner in the playoffs, in my opinion. Kawhi Leonard hits the luckiest one in history. Then Fred VanVleet has the games of his life to seal the deal. If that's a fully healthy Warriors team, they blow the Raptors off the court 4-2. And my problem that I've always had with Kawhi Leonard is he underperforms when it comes to big moments. We have seen him time and time again in his career. When it hits Game 7, a must win, a must need, we saw it against the Denver Nuggets yet again. 7 points in the second half. We saw him in Toronto not take like the last, what was it? I think it was 9 or 10 shots. Fred VanVleet literally hits back-to-back threes that ices the game for Toronto. Not Kawhi Leonard. Fred VanVleet, who played so unbelievable that it earned him the biggest contract that he ever thought he was going to get in his entire career. So I have a lot of problems with Kawhi Leonard. Now, when Kawhi Leonard is who Kawhi Leonard is, which is an incredible defender and somebody who doesn't focus on scoring but can score the basketball, he's an incredible player, and he's in that top 3 conversation. But he has become, I'm Kevin Durant, I'm LeBron James, I've got to score 35 a game, and I don't play lockup defense anymore. I also don't play more than 2 games, in a week. And that's my big problems with Kawhi Leonard. And it's very tough for me not to put him out of my top 10 for some of those big missteps that he has, like sitting out several games and expecting the same treatment as a 1 or a 2, underperforming in big moments throughout his career, not just in certain games or certain moments. And everybody's saying that, he's so this, he's so that. He's not only going to be tested this year like he's never been tested before in his career, but mark my words, if the Los Angeles Clippers get bounced in the first or second round of the playoffs, Kawhi Leonard's name will never be brought up in the top 10 best players to ever do it ever again. There's a lot of people doing it right now, saying that if he wins one more championship, he'll be in the top 10 to ever do it. He'll never make my top 10. Hell, Kevin Durant will never make my top 10 if you're talking about all-time NBA, but his name will never grace the top 10, not even the top 15 of NBA players of all time, and that conversation goes away for good. Moving in at number 8, Steph Curry. Now, we also have not seen Steph Curry, besides the 1 or 2 preseason games, really do anything on the basketball court for several years, it seems like. Oh, it's just been so long since we've seen a good, healthy Golden State team. But we all know what Steph Curry is when healthy, and Steph Curry looks healthy, and that is why, for that simple fact, a 2-time MVP, a unanimous MVP, Steph Curry, is got to be in your top 10. I'm going to put him here at 8 because I do believe that he does have some limitations. Like on the defensive side of the basketball, he struggles mightily, and that is what separates him from a Damian Lillard. And the difference between him and Luka Doncic is Steph Curry can't drive the ball and take anybody to the rack and score, whereas Luka Doncic can literally take anybody, any defender, anytime, anywhere to the rack and get a bucket. That's where he separates from Steph Curry. So for those of you who probably wanted some clarification, that's why I slid Steph Curry back here. But no doubt Steph Curry is the greatest shooter to ever play the game. And Steph Curry is in my top 10 at number 8. Moving on to number 9, James Harden. Now, James Harden has taken some hits for me. His bullcrap of wanting out of Houston, take me to a contender team. Now he's in bailout mode because he knows he has failed to get it done time and time again. Coming up short in the playoffs, playing lackluster in the playoffs, playing his selfish iso ball, missing 12 and 13 threes in playoff games has led James Harden to this moment where he just wants to go to a contender. He wants to win his rings and he wants to retire and say, I'm one of the greatest scorers, if not the greatest scorer to ever do it. And look, I've got 2 rings to show for it. He wants to ring chase because James Harden can't get it done by himself, has never been able to. He was not able to carry the Rockets to 1 win when Chris Paul went down. He has continually choked in the playoffs. Even though James Harden is an impeccable scorer, probably the best scorer in all of the NBA, probably the most unguardable person in the NBA when it comes to getting to the free throw line, when it comes to creating his own shot, when it comes to drawing fouls, James Harden is the best in the league, especially with Kevin Durant, coming back from injury. But James Harden is still a top 10 player. I just don't like a lot of the things that come along with James Harden in a lot of the performances, and that is why I kept him back here at 9. And finally, number 10. Now, number 10 is up for debate for a lot of people. It's a very touchy subject because there's a lot of players that could really slide in at this 10 spot. I'm going to put Nikola Jokic. What Nikola Jokic did in the playoffs is the simple reason that I'm putting Nikola Jokic in my top 10. I had him in my top 10 last year. I loved the fact that he lost all the weight that he did. I love the fact that Nikola Jokic can shoot and score whenever he needs to. He can shoot over anybody, and he's the best big man passer of the basketball that we have ever seen. I love Nikola Jokic. He's a special, special player. I expect big things from him. He's lost a ton of weight. His biggest thing is maintaining that weight loss and getting more stamina out of it because he seems to get burned out late in games. But we saw heroic performances from him in the playoffs. I fully expect him and Jamal Murray to be another nightmare matchup for anybody in the playoffs, especially with all the players they're bringing along there in Denver. I really like Nikola Jokic, and like I said, this is in this 10 spot. There's a lot of players that can be put in this spot. For me, it's Nikola Jokic. Well, there are my top 10. There are ESPN's top 10. Let me run through ESPN's real quick. They went LeBron 1, Anthony Davis 2, Giannis at 3, Luka Doncic at 4, Kawhi Leonard at 5, Kevin Durant at 6, Damian Lillard at 7, Steph Curry at 8, James Harden at 9, Nikola Jokic at 10. So you see, we had a very similar list. We both had James Harden, Nikola 9 and 10. We both had the first 4 completely, and then 5, 6, and 7 is where it got a little dodgy for me. I put Damian Lillard up at 5, I put Kevin Durant at 6, and I put Kawhi Leonard back at 7. So those were our differences. I'm sorry I kind of trailed off in the middle of that conversation. Another code word. So for those of you playing along at home, for those of you who want a Christmas gift from the locker room, I gave you 3 code words last episode. I've gave you one at the very beginning of this. It was Jacob, just to remind you. And then my next word, listen closely. Who. No, I'm not doing an impression of an owl. The word is who. So Jacob and who, the 2 code words of the day. And then I'm going to go ahead and give you one more. Is. I feel like I'm at a spelling bee right now. Jacob, who is. Jacob, who is. Jacob, who is. Those are our code words for the day. Make sure you're playing along at home if you want an awesome gift from the locker room. Real quick, Jake Paul has called out Conor McGregor, posted a video cussing out his wife, calling her a hoe, saying that Ireland is trash. This is the time that Conor McGregor needs to step up, beat the living hell out of Jake Paul. I want to see it. At this point, Jake Paul needs to get knocked the frick out. So Conor McGregor, I hope you start answering some of these phone calls. I hope you start answering. Pick up the phone from his manager. Listen, post a video to respond. I know you're focused on the UFC. I know you're focused on getting the belt back, but go beat this little kid's ass in between getting the belt back in the UFC 155 division, the greatest division in all of the UFC. There's a whole lot more on the show that we could have gotten to today, but I just wanted to focus on these 2 topics. I know there's so much going on in the sports world. Follow our social media. That is where we do a lot of things. We have a massive college football show dropping this Saturday because it is playoff time. It is championship game time. Who's in, who's out, we'll let you know. I'll let you know mine. Justin, Seth, Steve, some other guests will be on the show on Saturday, so make sure you're joining in. Thank you all for joining us and listening to us. Follow us on our social media. I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.